Welcome to another episode of Tiff Talks Tech. I'm very excited to have my friend Tyler Marker at Zidan. Today, we're going to be talking about the ROI of apartment automation for centralization. Tyler has done an amazing pilot at his communities, and I really want to dive into how you guys did it, the results, because I know that was a big initiative for you all. So before we really dive into the details, can you tell us a little bit about your background and then how your whole pilot came to be?
Sure. Well, it's an honor to be with you, Tiffany. I'm so excited to join you. And this pilot started out of an initiative for our company here at Zidan Management Group. And I know it's everyone ZMG is
Yeah.
certainly easy. I've now been with the company. August is actually my 3-year mark with the company. Prior to that, I was with the Indiana Apartment Association, and prior to that, I was in student housing. So, family working on almost 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. But brought on here as the director of marketing and then also took over our professional development department to build both of those. And then working closely with our leadership team, we have determined that we want to take our own spin on centralization. And right, there's this big negative connotation around centralization in our industry, especially from a talent perspective. When people hear that, they get nervous, they get worried, is my job in jeopardy, things of that nature. And so we wanted to really strategic about this as to why we're doing this and how we roll this out. So we were extremely diligent, extremely thought through in all of our steps that we took. It stemmed out of an interest to be more operationally efficient and to be able to unshackle our people in many ways. Because let's think about it and this kind of goes back to the recent NAA session that we had with Robert and Kim about the ROI on apartment centralization and automation. Great session, by the way. It received rave reviews, which was really exciting. But we really turned our people in multifamily into bots,
Mhm.
right? We hire them for their talent, we hire them for their shine and their sparkle and their ability to interact well in person. And then we set them in front of a computer all day and say, now respond to all these emails, texts, calls, and wipe you from all personality. And we wanted to really unshackle our people into three main areas that they took up a bulk of their time. And so when we think about an employee, our salary in that employee is our investment in them. And so where is the bulk of their time, aka our salary, going? And so we looked at all of the functions that our team on site do, and we narrowed it down to three major pillars that took up the bulk of their time: lead nurturing, move in, move out process, as well as then the renewal nurturing and renewal process. Not too surprising. We expected those three areas. I would argue that's probably where most on-site
Yeah.
teams, regardless of company and market, spend their time. And so we wanted to find a way, and we totally ripped off FedEx's mantra of automate the process and humanize the experience. That was our guiding light when we first started this almost a year and a half ago, brainstorming. And that was written on the big whiteboard at the very top. And that channeled and funneled everything that we did. And so we looked at automating those three processes to the best of our ability, with the ability to have our team here at HQ. And we wanted to take this in a different route rather than just the standard centralized model where typically you'll have one leasing consultant or specialist or whatever they want to call them, and they will oversee all processes for several communities in separate markets or even within the same market. We wanted to do this differently because we see it's been a few years now, right, since the pandemic, and our industry
Yeah.
pushed for centralization. So we've seen a lot of companies succeed and not so much in this department. So we really took a step back. I'm glad we were not necessarily first to do this because it allowed us to learn from others. And we were really grateful for the connections and network that we have that were able and willing to share their experience and kind of what they would have done differently or are doing different. And so we decided that some of the biggest risks that were associated with centralization is in the communication of it to your teams. And oftentimes that can cause a panic. Oftentimes it can lead to layoffs, or rather people resigning because they think, well, my job's going in a couple months anyway, so time to start updating the resume. And we wanted to avoid that because that wasn't what we wanted. That wasn't why we were doing this. It was to really help our people and have our people be able to do more of what they love rather than the monotonous and mundane stuff that they're always doing. So another risk area that we found was there's also usually a lot of turnover with centralization. And we wanted to make sure that we got the right people in the right seats with the right culture. And so we wanted to create a subculture within our company on our team here. And then we also wanted to create roles that really spoke to people's unique strengths and capabilities. And so this is what led to us deeming this our specialized leasing initiative.
I love that.
And so we actually created two roles, and I'm sure more roles will be created here in the future as we evolve this. We created a leasing specialist who handles everything lead to lease execution. And then we have a resident relations specialist who handles everything from lease execution to any kind of inquiries, their resident life journey, and then ultimately the renewal and or move out. And so by doing that, those are two very different skill sets,
Yeah.
two very different types of people. One is more short-term relationships and sales with leasing, the other being longer-term relationships and a customer experience role with our resident relations. So those are two very different people. And we wanted to create this so that when we wrote these job descriptions, we made sure that the pay was the same, the earning potential, the bonus earning potential was the same, different KPIs, of course, so that money was no longer the motivator there. It was that job is me. I'm that role. That
Um,
speaks to who I am.
not to
And so
interrupt,
then they
but
self-sort.
I have a question about that. So obviously, I know what the incentives would be and the KPIs for leasing. I think most of us know, but what was it that you were looking for in that resident role?
Right. So typically, when we want to design KPIs, we want those to be the areas that if that employee focuses on and achieves those areas, it has made the company money, right? That's the short and sweet of any KPI. If you do these metrics and if you achieve these goals on these metrics, you have made us money as a company. And so we looked at both roles and where do they make the company money and or what are major contributing factors that make the company money in their role. And so with the resident relations specialist, obviously renewal retention rates per property were one of the KPIs because they are ultimately responsible for that. But we also survey our residents at several vantage points, whether it's after a tour, during a move-in process, any work order, a biannual resident survey, a satisfaction survey. So we have multiple touch points with our clients to see where they're at, and we have been able to tie response rates to those and certain scores to likelihoods of leasing or renewing. And so from that, we also tied in certain scores on those surveys that relate to their role and where they can have an impact on those scores. Maybe not the entire survey. We actually pulled out certain segments of each survey that they really had an impact on that often lead to more renewals or lead to better reviews and higher retention rates and better leasing and things like that. And so with the resident relations role, we had to take a step back and really look at, okay, how are they making the company money? How are they impacting the bottom line? And it was through resident satisfaction, through renewal retention, and through community engagement. So those were kind of the major pillars for that role. Obviously, leasing is we're pretty used to what KPIs look like for that role. So that one was a little bit easier to define. So we did have to spend a little bit more time on what does the resident relations role look like and how is it going to be rewarded.
That makes sense. So how many properties were each role kind of overseeing?
Right. So we decided to start this on a pilot, right? We
Yeah.
weren't going to roll it across the whole portfolio right away. So we were actually very diligent in what properties we chose to pilot this on. There were two communities where it started. It started with two communities in our pilot. One is a garden style in Greenwood, Indiana. The average age of tenant there is 42 years old. And then we also chose a completely different market, a high rise, one of our high rise Class A communities in Chicago, where the average age is 32. So a 10-year span to applicant, very different asset type, very different markets, but we did that on purpose.
Yeah.
If it can work between those two asset types, this can work across our portfolio because that represents the two different major types of asset that we manage, garden and some high-rise luxury. And so with that being said, that's why we initially chose those. So at the beginning of this, they both oversaw two communities for their specific role, which ended up being just over 450 units to start.
That's awesome. That's great. So, what was one of the things that you said to yourself, like, I will know that this has worked when XYZ? Like, how do you know that it's been a success?
Sure. So when we got to a point where we were ready to start this pilot, we mapped out our timeline. And at different points within that timeline, we identified where there would be risks that we knew of, right? One of the major risks was when we initially communicate this throughout the company. That was a very big piece of this because based on our experience with other companies, that was a major hurdle for them. When they communicated this, there was a lot of uncertainty across their teams, and that led to a lot of people resigning. That led to a huge workload and burden to HR, and it delayed projects and things of that nature. So we wanted to be really intentional about that. So one of the major success metrics was once we communicate this, what does that resignation rate look like?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud to say that when we did communicate this out, we were very intentional about it. It actually was a culmination of almost 8 months of surveying our employees of how they respond to change and then working to very carefully craft a message, and also then how and when we timed that message was a big piece of that from that survey data that we got from our employees. And so I'm very proud to say we did not have one single resignation
That's
from that
amazing. I was
communication.
wondering because it sounds like you placed a very big emphasis on caring for the employee and pouring into their development. And I think that is such an important shift because so many times, I mean, our industry has such high turnover. And I think that is such a great solution as well. We're putting people in the seats that are tailored to their talents and really showing that we care about them. And then getting rid of the busy work. We're not trying to replace them. We just wanna get rid of that.
And so we also, you're exactly right. We have a stupid high turnover rate in
Yeah.
in multifamily. I think NAA just put it out most recently that we hit a 20-year low back in 2022, and it was at 46%. Like, are you
That is
kidding me?
still so
We're
high.
proud of that? Well, no, 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 no. When corporate America benchmark is usually sitting around 20.
Yeah.
And so multifamily, we have always struggled with that. In fact, the fact that is true that it was a 20-year low because we tend to sit in the 60s and 70s,
Mhm.
honestly.
Oh,
We are nothing to model after, and I'm going to put that out to every single management company out there. Some are doing really good things, but we need to look outside of our industry to understand how they retain their employees because we do not have that secret sauce in multifamily. Soapbox over. I'm really passionate about turnover rates, and that was another area of
yeah.
success because, right, we are like most companies in our industry, we are subject to that turnover on site. Our on site turnover rate was at 58%. And that's nothing that we're proud of. It was certainly something that caused a lot of work, a lot of cost, and time lost in constantly having to rehire. And so that was another metric of success that we had for this role was what does that turnover rate look like from those here at HQ in this specialized model? Another area would be, okay, we are going to be able to have our people be more effective, more impactful, be able to do more across multiple properties versus just one. And so this will be a success under three scenarios. One, it'll be a success under two. There's only one scenario that this would fail. One measure of success would be with our people here, we see our metrics go up, our leasing, our rent is able to go up, our quality control, because I'm also our director of training, if you want to call it that. And I know every director of training out there, the bane of their existence is to have that quality control across their entire portfolio when they are not there to constantly reiterate that and be able to ensure that quality. We are trying to train and empower people from afar in hopes that they actually follow through on the policies, procedures, and operating metrics that we've set. That is always a struggle with every director of training. So having the employees here actually has been able to ensure that quality. Our metrics that we've been measuring have gone through the roof, which is really, really great. We measure our employee satisfaction through an annual survey. And we're really excited to say because we surveyed them prior to joining in our traditional model. And then
Mm,
we surveyed our people who joined our pilot, and employee satisfaction went up 90%.
that's
Because
wild.
it is. Not only were we able to increase their compensation, of course, to really reward them for the impact that they're having across multiple properties, but also we're creating a role that's designed for them. They're
Yeah.
in a culture that really is celebratory of who they are as an employee and is kind of a subculture within our company. And so employee satisfaction did go up, which was really exciting. And this is something that I've always been a firm believer of since I started in student housing. My residents are second to my employees.
Yeah.
Always. Because if our employees are not a well-oiled machine who are really passionate about what they do, that's going to impact the client's
Oh, yeah.
experience. So we have to address our employees first. That will then impact our clients. And so similarly, this was crazy too, at the exact same rate, 90% resident satisfaction went
That is
on the
insane.
pilot properties from same, and we measured the same time window, the same vantage point year over year. So the months that we did the pilot, we measured against those exact months the year before. So we were not comparing. I wanted the true apples to apples. And in that same window, under our specialized model, resident satisfaction went up 90%.
Wow. What do you think it is? Do you think it was having more of that engagement with a resident like specialist?
The way we designed it, because yes, when you break up two roles like that that are typically one, big piece of that, we know we're going to have someone really strong in the leasing. We know we're going to have someone really strong at the resident life. It's the handoff because
Mm.
the client starts with one
Yeah.
and then they transition to another. And so that transition was something we needed to massage out. And we actually leverage Real. I don't know if I'm allowed to say certain
Yeah.
companies.
No, absolutely. Say what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we leverage Reeling. They are a live video tour or a virtual touring company based out of Carmel, Indiana. But they blew up, of course, during COVID,
Yeah.
and
They're
have just been a huge, huge benefit to us. So we actually created a introduction video, but with both individuals. And so whenever someone signs a lease as part of their move-in information that they get that video, and it introduces our resident relations specialist who's going to be handling everything from there on. And it's kind of a farewell from the leasing specialist. And, it helps transition that resident. And then our resident relations specialist also leverages Real Link and video chatting with our residents. So the way that we're actually able to do this is we bring our teams on site when we bring in their property, we bring them here. And we do still have an on-site manager. We don't ever want to fully remove that on-site touch, right? They do need an on-site representative. We still have an asset that needs managed. So, and we still have a service team that needs overseen and helped and supported. So we're never going to get rid of people on site. It's not our model. It never has been. And I don't see that coming in the future. But the leasing office staff and resident office staff are here at HQ now. And so when we bring those people on, we make sure that they have all the tools that they need to communicate effectively via video. And I was really impressed with um, how adapted even our Greenwood property at average age of 42,
Yeah.
virtual touring, they were fine with it. Self-guided tours, they were fine with it. We were successful enough on the leasing front to where we were actually comfortably, not because we were forced to do it because of a pandemic, comfortably removed guided tours. We do not offer guided tours anymore. We offer self-guided and we offer virtual. And we've recorded videos of all of our units as they're made ready and or our models, right? Of our amenities, of our clubhouse spaces. And so our leasing specialists here at HQ are able to showcase from anywhere, right? We have people who go into a parking lot during their lunch break and are on their phone taking a virtual tour because they can do it whenever is convenient for them. And they're able to see the real unit that they're looking for. And so even that demographic, we suspected Chicago would be really adapt to this,
Yeah.
right? That demographic. But our Greenwood, Indiana property came through. That property
Mm.
is actually doing better in occupancy. Between the two properties, our occupancy went up 8% year over year in the same time window. And so our net rental income went up uh, greatly. Our renewal rate went up 11% across the two properties. Occupancy increased over 8%. Traffic, our closing ratio was one that we had to watch a little bit because we do watch closing
Yeah.
ratios. And historically, we do it like most people do, lead to lease. Pat on the back to our marketing team. Our traffic increased 52% year over year,
Mm.
and our occupancy went up. So we had less available to lease. Therefore, our closing ratios did go down.
Yeah.
So we decided to actually revamp the closing ratio calculation to tour to lease
Mm.
rather than traffic lead to lease. Just because traffic was up, availability was down, they just simply couldn't close on quite as much. So we wanted to make sure that we were being fair to the employee on what we were measuring on their KPI. So we've adjusted and massaged KPIs We do it on a quarterly basis, awarding that with them, but I provide them their tracking each month so they know where they stand on their KP. And we actually have it on a big screen up here in the office, kind of like the stock room, the ticketing monitors on
Yeah.
the stock floor. And so it was just fun. And we got to revamp this office a little bit and make it fun and very Google inspired and
So
just be an enjoyable place for people to come work.
that's amazing. I love that. So you had a really big initiative to automate so many of your processes. And I know like doing the video tours, that's one way to automate it. And what are some other ways that you automated? What other processes did you look at that you thought, hey, we might not need a human for this specific thing?
A lot of back and forth communication was a
Yeah.
big piece of it. That it certainly by taking and doubling their responsibility, right? For the pilot, they're used to one property. Now they have two, so they've doubled their doubled their workload, doubled the number of communications and conversations they need to have. We do it through text. They can do emails, they can do calls, they can do chats. So there's so many notifications, right, coming to our leasing specialist.
Yeah.
And so that was one area we saw really quickly that they were going to get overwhelmed if we didn't address that before we got started. And so we do leverage AI both through our chat channels and chatbot, BetterBot, and then also through within our own CRM has a built-in AI as well that can auto respond, not just auto responders and triggers, with
Yeah.
pre-written automated messages. That's great. It's wonderful for like drip campaigns and stuff, but actual conversation back and forth, we knew that we needed to leverage AI for that. And AI has come so far in the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, whereas it was this crazy, cloud concept 2, 3 years ago, and can barely respond. It was very obvious that, oh yeah, that's a bot. To where now this can truly sound like a person. And it's not necessarily that we want it to sound like a person. It's that we need it to recognize human slang,
Yeah.
human verbiage, human actual tone of voice and messaging so that it can respond similarly. And it really has gotten to that point, and it's only getting better by the day. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge part of it. So now we do leverage AI back and forth communication through our chatbot and BetterBot. And then we also have an AI built into our CRM that can back and forth email and text. Calling has still been one that we are working on. We're measuring how much phone communication we actually get because let's face it, millennials and Gen Z are the main renter demographic by far. We don't like to talk on the phone.
No.
It's not something we want to do ever. Don't talk
But
to
if
me.
I get on the phone, I do wanna talk to somebody because
Yeah.
at that point, I'm frustrated or I need
Yes.
something specific.
The worst thing that you can ever do to a millennial when they have to get on the phone because they're getting on the phone because they have to,
Yeah.
do not give them some nonsense automated phone
Yeah.
tree system. No. I will be pressing the pound key every single time to get a person or
Yeah.
pressing zero nonstop.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that piece, we knew that with the intention people use a phone primarily, we know that we need to keep it to humans. And so that piece we have not automated, but it's on purpose. And having measured our phone traffic, it's not nearly the level of virtual self-guided tours, chats, text, emails. It's nowhere near that level. Now, if that changes in time, of course, we'll adapt. But as of right now, our on-site team, or rather our HQ team here, handles those calls. And the way we designed it is it'll first try the leasing specialist if they select leasing. It will first try the leasing specialist. If they can't answer within 3 rings, it will then go to the on-site manager, who then certainly can answer any questions that they have. Same for if they are a resident and they press 2 for resident, it'll go to the resident relations specialist first and then funnel to the property manager if they can.
Yeah, I think phone has a long way to go, but I think eventually we'll get there. I mean, when I
Yeah.
started working at BetterBot, the main types of AI that people were using were guided conversation and natural language processing. And it's crazy to see, gonna get nerdy here, but crazy to see how far large language models have come because, I mean, natural language processing, it only would learn what you taught it. But with large language models, it pulls from the whole internet. And so that's how it can understand slang and what we're saying. And so I think it's really important that when you're looking for tools, kind of dive deeper into what kind of technology they're using because, I mean, if it is a large language model, you're going to get a better experience than some others, depending on what you're using it for. And
Well,
to,
and similar to that,
yeah,
choosing what AI you choose really matters because
right.
where it pulls its information from, some are designed with a empathetic tone in mind. Others are truly, transactional, black, white, input, output.
Yeah.
This is it. No soft, no ability to understand tone. And it's not designed for that. It's factual. Whereas others are meant to be able to receive, understand, and respond with similar tone, or recognize an escalated tone. And if we are telling it to de-escalate the situation, it can actually take steps to calm that situation.
Yeah.
And
There's so
so,
many you can customize with your brand voice too.
yes, yes. And so, well, and on that point too, DOT nerdy a little bit here again. How hard is it for we put together all of our processes, our training content, curriculum, and that is not easy. To write curriculum and content in a way that is easily understood, followed, and digested and accepted by people is very challenging. So we spend so much time, so much resource on getting our training content exactly where we need it. And then we communicate it to our people in the most effective way possible. We follow up with them on that.
Yeah.
And, and the things still often, sometimes don't happen, still isn't
Yeah.
followed. AI literally put in my training manual and say, work within these guidelines. Do not deviate. Boom. I
Yeah.
we monitor this daily. We have yet to see it go outside of our training and outside of our company policies.
That's amazing. And that's another great point because I mean there's AI out there like I said, large language models they pull from the internet so you want to make sure that whatever AI you use, it's either it has some kind of guidelines and takes into consideration fair housing as well because if it doesn't then it can say whatever it needs to say to get that person a lease and it might not always be true unless you have parameters around it, which is so important.
Yes, yes. So from a training perspective as well, this has been really helpful for quality assurance in how we expect our people or our interactions with clients to go and the policy in which we've set.
Yeah, when you're looking at whatever tools that you need to automate these processes, are there certain things that you're looking for? I know we have that with AI, but was there anything else that you were looking for that you really needed it to do?
Do not as much.
Mm,
We knew the job we needed it to do.
yeah,
We knew what it was designed to do. We knew that the solution it was trying to solve for. A big piece of it, and this is something that I understand in our industry. I understand it not just within our industry, it's tech in general. The big players, of course, that many of us are beholden to with our CRM, our database, our all of our screenings and leasing activities in those softwares, they intentionally make it most of them make it are intentional about third party best of breed services not fully working well within their system.
mm,
And that's on purpose because they want to sell their own, even if it is subpar to a best of breed.
yeah.
So I'm just going to call that out like it is. And oftentimes, the built in solution by that product carrier isn't even one they have coded themselves
It doesn't
often.
talk to the whole overall system,
It does not because they bought someone's really good product
and then it's
and
janked.
tried to code it into theirs. And so then things are clunky and even within their own software, or they have it just to say, yep, tick, we've got it. It's, and isn't the best product, but it works within their system somewhat. Now, there are some that code their own solutions, right? And I have the most respect for those companies. If
Yeah.
you are going to be a CRM company that is a full scope property management software, code your own solutions. You
Mm,
got the money, you have the resources, you have the R&D to do it, code it. If you're not going to code it, you're going to buy someone and their solution, you make sure that works because there's nothing more frustrating, especially from a company and an operator like us who are committed to doing this right and making this work. If you are going to make it to where best of breed third parties are purposely not going to work right with your software, you best make sure your software is better or as good as theirs, or be willing to play in the sandbox with the best of breed solutions out there. That is one of the most frustrating things. I know I'm getting on a soapbox,
no, I
but that
love
is one
it.
of the
Like,
most
say it louder for the people in
frustrating
the back. Yes.
is so frustrating as
Yeah.
an operator because we want to make sure, right, that it works with our system and our system of record and our operating software. It needs to work with that.
Yeah.
But because they were losing money to best of breed, they have now closed their APIs or just enough to where it doesn't quite transfer everything as we need it. And so that we must go with theirs, even if it's subpar. And that is not serving the client well. Very few of us actually like our major software providers because of that frustration that it causes us on a daily basis. I mean, our team is troubleshooting software issues because things didn't link with one another on a multiple times daily basis. And there's so much wasted time, so much wasted money on our part when we could just have systems that work well together.
Yeah.
So challenge this industry. You will actually retain your clients better, big software companies, if you allow for best of breed, because then your clients are going to be really overly whelmed, happy with it. And that also gives you some time to do some real R&D and code your own solutions that actually work and can
Yeah, and I
compete.
think it gives the opportunity to, I mean, when you work with the ginormous software companies, I mean, it's always difficult to get the service that you think you deserve. Whereas when you work with some of the smaller best in class, they have more of that support that can focus on that one thing that you need help with. So I think, like you said, allowing those things to work together, it saves them time and money as well because
Right,
utilizing outside resources.
right.
Yeah.
Even then, if they don't want to do R&D on their own solutions, then perfect. Really allow others to
Yeah.
come in. We will absolutely stay with you if you play well in the sandbox. And
Right.
that is something that we would love. And then you save yourself all that time, money, and hassle to develop your own when you know it's not going to be as good. And it's like, okay, well, let us truly have us in mind rather than trying to keep a stronghold on our accounts payable to be
Right.
beholden to you.
Exactly. And so switching gears just a
So much
little
so.
bit, but when you were working on the pilot, was there anything, well, you were in the middle of everything. Was there anything that you saw as like a challenge that you had to overcome that you didn't think of beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely, right, and that's the whole purpose of a pilot is to learn from
Yeah.
it. It's a success, even if you didn't get the outcome that you wanted, it's a success if you learn from a pilot, and we
Mm.
were lucky enough to achieve both, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that that was the case, but even if we didn't achieve our goals, the fact that we learned would have been a successful pilot. So that being said, yes, like I mentioned, we chose a Greenwood, Indiana property, that is on Eastern Time. We chose a Chicago property, that's on Central Time. Believe it or not, time zone conversion was a massive
Mhm.
hurdle for our software company. Yes, I did not we were not expecting that.
Yeah.
How long has Outlook, if you and I, Tiffany, I believe you're on Central Time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you sent me the invite to this podcast. It converted automatically to my time zone and
Mhm.
my time on my calendar. It has done that for what? 12, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
whatever it is at this
Oh,
point. These big systems can't do that. And when we shopped around, because we shopped around the other big ones too,
yeah.
they also can't do it. So, for example, if I have someone looking to schedule a tour in Chicago on Central Time, and that tour is going to be with an agent here in Eastern Time, it puts it on Eastern Time because that's the agent's calendar,
Mm.
which then is not the time that the client wanted it because that's an hour off. And then because it blocks both, because we have still two property websites that are all sharing off one calendar for the agent, it now blocks off, well, someone requested that time in Central Time, so that time is not no longer available. But then it also then blocked the time in Eastern Time an hour later on the agent's calendar, which means someone could not block the next hour. So it actually took up 2 hours of time, and that made it to where people could not schedule tours within two block windows. And so that was one of the greatest challenges that we had on how do we work around that. We went to the very top, the director of development, the director of sales, and the director of services. I don't know what his title is. And with our software company. And when we said that challenge, their mind blown, absolutely blown, as if they had never, ever experienced this. And their response to us was, our clients who do this, they all have offices in those time zones. They make sure they have at least one office in every time zone that they're in. Like,
Oh,
are
but
you
that's
kidding me?
not conducive to
Are you
centralization.
kidding me? Like, what what are we doing here? And so the software was actually the biggest piece. I'm very proud to say the people we chose to pilot,
Yeah.
the people we chose to fill these roles have been incredible,
Oh,
absolutely incredible. I mentioned 58% turnover rate on our traditional on-site model. We have a zero turnover rate in our specialized model. No one, thank God, because they are the right people, they are in the right role, and they are being rewarded, recognized, and challenged for it. And so our people have been the greatest success of this entire pilot. And I am so proud of that. Our best of breed additional services like self-guided tour, our chatbot, our virtual touring, those have all been wild successes in this project. The error and issue has been in the foundational software. It was a CRM that was built too quickly just to get something out before it was ready and be able to compete in the market and say they had something. And then they've been trying to fix it since. It has made minor improvements, but not the best. However, we as a company are going to remain with them because they are our system of record. And that's how most companies at the end of the day, they recognize that it's subpar, but we are kind of stuck with it. And so that's the only hiccup that we really had in the pilot was how to navigate the actual CRM software and it not performing how we needed it to. I'm hopeful that with continual updates that they've been making, it will get better. It has gotten minorly better.
yeah.
But we are still needed. I mean, they said, for example, that time zone conversion, that's years on the horizon. That is, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Years.
Yes, they said that is, they'll put it on the docket, but that is not. I'm like, are you
That's
kidding
the
me?
thing that frustrates me is like having that the docket for years. Okay, well, who knows if I'll even need it by then? Like,
Right, exactly. And so it's like, that would really help us too. So we've had to get really creative with some workarounds, and that actually made it to where we had to have certain leasing specialists just dedicated to our central model, even though they work in the Eastern time zone, they now work on a central work schedule here. So they're an hour off from our other employees. But we had to dedicate them specifically to that market
yeah,
so that they could work off that same calendar and same schedule. And that is costing us additional money where that person could actually be doing more properties, but because they're limited to the time zone, we only have three properties in the central time zone. Whereas our leasing specialists are able to do more than that, but because of that time zone conversion, we're keeping it to three for that person. So it does have a genuine operational inefficiency and cost from our software not working how we need it to, but it is working. It is flowing, is successful. It could be more efficient, but it is still wildly more efficient than we were because if we think back comparatively, we had close to six. Yeah, six. We had about six leasing staff from those three properties to now we have one for those specific functions.
yeah,
And then the others are now in resident relations and others are serving other properties. So, but that is a major operational efficiency growth, but it could be better. And
yeah.
we're always looking to perfect. Like that's the thing. We're always wanting to be better. We never settle. And I'm glad that we have that mentality as a company.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I mean, it is, I think, part of the new way of thinking. Like, we want to keep improving things. I think a long time ago, things were this is how we've always done it, and this is how we're going to keep doing it. And I love that you took a new mindset and said, okay, I'm going to see this big problem and figure out how we can maximize it and make it better.
Because we saw so many companies, of course, be forced into centralized models. And so they rushed it out as quickly as they could because we had to, right, as an industry. And because of that, we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. Technology wasn't quite there yet for us as an industry. A lot of people rolled it back once COVID was done. And we're like, I think this can make us more nimble as a company. We can now go into markets where we maybe not would have not explored before. We can buy asset types that maybe we wouldn't have been able to, it wouldn't have penciled out, like smaller, more boutique type assets where we would have still had to have the full on-site team
Yeah.
and that wouldn't have penciled out quite as well. Whereas now we can just bring it on to one of our centralized team here. So it makes us more nimble, more competitive on an investor market and an asset acquisition market. It also has been really successful in our lease up operations. We just finished building a project down in Greenwood and it has been very successful on this model. And so this has been a really good move for our company from an operational efficiency, an employee satisfaction, a client satisfaction, and also, of course, a revenue generating model. It's not perfect,
Yeah.
right? The software is the clunkiest piece of this, not and it working with the best of breed solutions that we want to keep. And so that's the biggest hurdle we have right now. our structure, our people, the roles we designed, how we designed it, that's all working really, really well. And so, we're just at this point really hoping and pressing forward for technology to continue to evolve in our industry.
Yeah, no, definitely. So to that end, I know we talked about a lot of the benefits of it. Do you have any specific numbers that you can share that really showed what the return was on your investment to do this big pilot?
Yeah, yeah. So we actually wanted to make sure that we were grading our pilot before we, brought this to our ownership to then bring it across the portfolio. And so the entire time we created a scorecard for each specific, not only just goal, but each specific software and piece of this puzzle. The scorecard for the softwares and the structure, we listed it and we broke it out by software. What were the competencies that it was designed to do? That it promised us it could do, that it said it could do? How did it actually work? And what are the next steps on it if it didn't work? And so we actually were able to grade each software piece and our general structure of the pilot and of the specialized program. We were able to grade all of that compared to what we initially set out to do with it. So that was one scorecard. The other scorecard was all of the metrics that we routinely watch as a company. This pilot was going to be successful if our numbers stayed the same because we're doing more with less, or if they got better because we're doing better with less. The only way this failed was that if our numbers went down.
Yeah.
By numbers, I mean similar to ones we've talked about:
Yeah.
resident satisfaction, employee satisfaction, net rental income, occupancy, renewal retention, closing ratios, net rental increase. Those metrics all, with the exception of closing ratio, because we did measure it on that scorecard, lead to lease, but every other metric went up.
Mm.
All of those metrics went up, and the only reason the closing ratio went down was because traffic was doubled and we had less availability to close on. So we then revamped that one a little bit to be more fair. But every other metric, occupancy, renewal rate, net rental income, net rental increase, employee satisfaction, client satisfaction, all went up.
Wow.
And so that to us, and sorry, one more thing. We shop our people routinely. Most companies do. Our shop scores on site sitting below where we wanted, and took several trainings and pushes, and they get it for a little while freshly after the training and then give it a month, and then the scores go back down and then you got to redo it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, DOT for struggles. Here, they're right here. They're actually through this wall. They're right there. And so
Yeah.
their scores have all been 90 and above.
Wow.
And we need them to be 85 and above is what
Yeah.
we deem as success. They've all been 90 and above.
That's amazing.
And so our people are scoring better. All the metrics are up. The properties are performing better. And, this has been just a wild success for the company. So now we're facing in properties. Another thing that though we had to address, and it does play a role in our specialized leasing because it affects leasing, but it wasn't directly tied to it, was our website. So I'm really excited. We're actually launching it officially here in early September, finally, after months. You know how it goes. We're
Mhm.
given a bunch of templates to
Yeah.
and see which one we like and
Yeah.
what fits, what we need the best. And
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, but we can
Yeah.
do better. So I asked our software provider, who our websites are through, I asked them, give me your most mobile optimized sites. They gave me 3 options, and they all just took the existing desktop and scrunched it into a phone. I'm like, that is not mobile optimized. In 2024, that
Yeah.
is not mobile optimization. Because we were actually part, through J. Turner Research, we were actually part of a nationwide prospect survey of how people choose to search for apartments now, because that has changed wildly. Again, millennials and Gen Z are the main demographic at this point for renter. So what we actually found from that survey, what Jay Turner found from that survey and shared with us, and they surveyed over 6,000 prospects at this point. So it was a really good substantive survey data, was that the device they used determined the experience they expected. Meaning, if they're on a mobile device, they want an in-app experience. Quick, easy information that you are no more than 3 clicks away and 3 scrolls away from
Mm.
any information that I need. And it was to check the vibe, really. It was to check the vibe of the property, the vibe,
Yeah.
the feel that they get. And if they didn't have that within 5 seconds, they left your website and they did not consider you any further.
Yeah.
And then if they liked what they saw, then they move to like a tablet or laptop and be more substantive and do a little bit deeper search and things like that. And so I looked at our website. Now, when I joined, we didn't really have cohesive websites across the portfolio. That was something that was an initiative. We got it out kind of quickly, but they were functioning traditional websites.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's time. It is time. And so we actually worked. I didn't like any of the templates. I said, we're going to custom code this. We're going to do it. And so we have spent now 4 months custom coding every little piece of this. And I'm so excited. So for all my Hilton and even Bonvoy people out there, I know the big divide, right?
Yeah.
Between our Bonvoy and Hilton people. But when you go onto your app, it's just tiles, quick little access tiles
Yeah.
of I want my key, I need the concierge, I need to pick my
Yeah.
room. It's all just tiles. There's no scrolling involved. That is how our mobile website. It is a different website technically coded on the mobile than it would be on the desktop. Now they look very cohesive.
Yeah.
The themes and the styles and everything is very similar. So it's very obvious that you're on the same website, but it functions very differently based on the actual device you are using. And I'm so excited to see how that plays into a self-service element because we, as millennials and Gen Z, have the desire to self-serve. We are able to self-serve everything else in our life. I can't tell you the last time I called and made an appointment for my hair, it's a text. My dentist is a text. My Botox girl's a text.
Yeah.
And they're all businesses. Like these are through businesses.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you the last time I've had to schedule something manually with
Mhm.
someone. Why on earth do I have to do that to find housing? And so if we look at how people spend their daily lives outside of the home, we can actually better our technology for people how to acquire a home at that point. And we need to do that in this industry, really do that. And so I know it's coming. I know some people are more ahead of the curve than others for solutions, but I'm really excited to incorporate this new website into how this impacts our specialized leasing initiative, because I think it will really help lessen even the burden on the AI in conversations. Because
Yeah.
if they're self-serve more and find the information that they're looking for, because that's what they prefer. Your clients prefer to find it themselves. They
Yeah.
don't want to talk to someone. They only talk to someone if they can't find it or if they are that frustrated and need to talk to someone because there's a problem. So let's minimize that and let's let them find the information and make it really accessible to them in ways that they expect. So I'm excited to see how that even lifts the AI, even the
Yeah.
burden on the AI. Now, granted, it can continue to do all of that, but I'm curious to see how that impacts. So come early September, I'll have an update for you as to how that's working.
I can't wait to see. That's so exciting.
No,
So,
and it's beautiful too. It's very
oh my
pretty.
gosh,
It's a
that's
very pretty website.
oh, I love that. So, with the success of everything that you did with your centralization pilot, did you roll it out across the board, or are you in the process of doing that, or how did things go after?
Yeah, so we're in the process of doing that now. And we are bringing properties on 2 to 3 at a time. The biggest piece is just making sure we're not overwhelming our existing team on implementation because it is a lot of software to implement all at once. I will say that was a piece of the pilot, right? It was a big change overall.
Yeah.
So you have to be very comfortable with change, but it was a lot of software to implement at one time. I
Mm.
mean, you're talking big software like a CRM, because this was a new CRM for us. So it was all new CRM software, self-guided tour software that we'd never had to integrate with that CRM, virtual touring software, again, that we never had, that we also had to implement and make work with the CRM. So this was big software that we updated all at once. Most companies might adopt one of those at a time, but
Mm.
not all
Did you
at
have
once.
a person focused on that, or was that all you?
Yes.
Or
Yes. So while I co-spearheaded this with our CTO, we dedicated people. We delegated certain implementations to certain people. So they each were only responsible for one. And then they would meet on our cadence, on a regular cadence. We made sure that we all met together regularly so that we could make sure that things are still integrating well between the softwares and addressing any issues that we need. So we're doing 2 to 3 properties at a time. Again, not to overwhelm anybody with implementation and also to get the right people. We want to do it right. It was a success because we got the right people in here. We want to spend the time to get the right people of ours, our own people, get them here. So 2 to 3 properties at a time. Our next phase in will be probably end of September. Another 2 properties will come on board there. Our goal is by this time next year, the entire portfolio is on board.
how many properties? I know you said with the pilot they oversaw two. How many is that? How many you have? Like the ratio? Do they
No.
oversee? Okay.
So I was excited to learn about that because you'd hear from companies, well, when we did it, agents could oversee 500 units, agents could
Yeah.
see 750, and
Yeah.
things like that. And I wanted to see how that would work with a specialized unit, set up, because you're not doing all of those functions. You're doing half of them
Hmm.
because you're just focused on leasing and you're just focused on residents. And so our resident relations specialist can actually handle about 2,000 units. And our leasing specialists, we are going to, for now, keep them to 2 to 3 properties, which for us averages around 6 to 750 units. And we're going to watch that as we finally bring on more properties,
Yeah.
and we're going to be watching the client satisfaction and employee satisfaction numbers on that. And those two metrics, along with the others, of course, right, are going to really help us determine where's that sweet spot. Because if
Yeah.
the employee starts to get overwhelmed and bogged down because they have too much, clients are going to suffer, things are going to fall through the cracks, numbers are going to drop. So we're going to watch those metrics as we gradually bring on more properties. So TBD on that on the leasing specialist, but the resident relations specialist, we feel really confident can do about 2,000 to 2,500 units just themselves.
That's awesome. So, what advice would you give to people who are looking to centralize? How would you get them started?
Know your people, understand how your people respond to change because every company's different, right? Every person's different. This would not have been a success if we didn't spend about 8 months surveying our people and working also with a change consultant, or rather a leadership consultant. And he and I made sure the topics focused on change. And then we were able to actually plot how our teams, as on average, respond to change. So then I knew how resistant or comfortable our company was. And then I was able to really map out how are we actually going to roll this out and it be successful. So number one, know why you're doing this. Are you doing this to save on salaries, right? Because you're trying to reduce staff? Or are you actually doing this to help your people and have your people be better and be able to do more and actually do what you hired them to do rather than, bogging them down with all this mundane routine nonsense that
Yeah.
they don't want to do?
And it sounds like you were focused on that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other stuff followed.
Happened. Right. Yes. So if you focus on your people, you make sure that the people are at the center and core of why you do this, the numbers follow. So know why you're doing this, understand your people and how they respond to change, and then be very strategic. Don't rush to do this. We're not at a point in, thank God, where we have to rush to centralize. We're not at that point anymore. We're not pandemic level.
Right.
We actually can be strategic and thoughtful about this as to how we move forward with it.
Yeah.
So spend the time, do your homework, reach out to other companies. All throughout this, several companies have been very interested in how we're doing it. And so we've been meeting with them on and off periodically as we go through just to give them some updates. And hey, here's what's working for us, and here's what didn't work for us. And we're very much, if one ship rises, we all rise.
Yeah.
We're all trying to provide quality housing for people, and there is a deficit of housing compared to those who are wanting to rent. So there is plenty to go around for all. Let's all just do this well. And if we help each other in the process, I think that's good for all, really.
Absolutely. And so if people want to connect with you and learn more about the process, where can they do that?
Sure, they can find me on LinkedIn, all social media, of course. You're welcome to put you're welcome to tag me in it. I'm always happy to reach out and work with people on how we did this, and because that was a huge part of how we did ours, right? People were kind enough to tell us how they did it, where they saw successes, and where they needed to learn from. So that was a huge part for us. So if we can be part of someone else's success in the future, we're happy to do that.
That's
It works
awesome.
for us, and you'll have to find what works best for you, but we're happy to share what we did.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have a bonus question. This is something I ask all of my guests, but it
Okay.
does not have to be related to this topic. Is there any tech tool that you're loving right now that you use all the time?
Ooh, okay. So for me personally, and now my team are like absolutely using it for everything. We've embedded AI into all of our software now.
Yeah.
So Outlook, Google, like all of our Google Drive and everything. I tell you what, I tell you not. our communication has gotten so much better because this AI is helping write our responses. Like we start to type the jargon, right? Like kind
Yeah.
of what we'll currently say, and then it automatically is changing it and perfecting it, making it more persuasive, or making it a softer tone if we need to. And how many times in a company did we not like how somebody came to us with something or didn't wasn't clear, right? I'm like, what are you actually asking? Now I have to schedule a meeting with you, or I got to get on Zoom with you because I didn't quite get what you needed, or we had to go back and forth a lot. This has made communication so much better. So we actually embed AI now into all of our channels that we have here, and it is
I love
so
that.
nice.
I used Grammarly's AI.
I love
Great.
Grammarly.
Yeah.
Yes, I love Grammarly. I was actually talking with someone else too, separately to that, because communication in an organization is so crucial, right?
Yeah.
And it's often where a lot of breakdowns happen. So
Huh?
we have some tools to help us. I'm all for it. Apart from that, this was an interesting. I was talking with somebody else on kind of like what we're excited for in the future and what can be automated more. And she had mentioned, and I thought I was pondering this too, because I'm, wonder how that would work in the future, was automating actual, how did she put it? Being able to automate not just phones or texts and emails and all of that, but actually being able to automate so that your websites and your ads really, oh, you're looking for this unit? Boom, here it is. Look at, I know you said in your chat that washer dryer was important to you, and it boom shows you up that segment of that video that, oh, here's the washer dryer so you can
Mhm.
see it, or here's the photo of our washer dryer, or oh, you needed a walk-in closet. I need a walk-in closet. That's important to me. Lots
Yeah.
of clothes. And it would show them that. And that she said that people were starting to test that of, can it not only reply back and forth with, yes, we have full-size washer dryers. Yes, we have walk-in closets. Do you want to see our floor plan page? That then they have to go and navigate themselves to actually segment and understand your website and be able to pull that from your website and put it right into the communication and the conversation of, here it is. This is it. This is what you were looking for. Being able to
I feel like
understand
we're
it on
so
that
close to
level.
that.
I feel like we're getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Because what do our people have to do right now? Oh, let me go over here, get the photo. Let me put it into the chat, or here's the link to this amenity page. No, here is the exact. It can do that. It can scan your website. It knows what's on your content, and it's able to give examples for that right into the conversation. Yes, I want
I'm
that.
interested to see if AI will start to be incorporated in the way we search for apartments too.
I'm going to be controversial somewhat, only because it's data
I like
driven.
it. Do it.
Google's dying for
Mhm.
apartment searches. That is not where Gen Z, certainly Gen Z, and even millennials are going to search for apartments at this point. So the PPC ads, the ungodly amount of money that we spend on those
Yeah.
are maybe not where we should be spending our money. There are other search engines out there. People go directly to certain sites. I'm not going to give that away, but Google is not it anymore. That is not where most of these prospects started their search. They started directly on certain sites. And so now maybe we need to shift our advertising dollars that those sites do leverage AI in how many times do we get, and I'm sure you'll know the company, how many times we get emails saying, this house looks like it's for you in this
Yeah.
neighborhood, da 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 da, based on what you're searching. It also does apartments, and it does the same thing for apartments, and that leverages AI to do that because it understands the criteria that you've set and it's giving you suggestions for it. And you can even pay as the owner manager to be more up and up onto that list that's suggested based on search criteria. So maybe there are other options we need to explore when it comes to advertising, and how people search. So yes, I'm excited to see how AI starts to really be used. And what's also interesting is there were a lot in that search survey, there were a lot of prospects that actually did go to an AI and say, I'm looking for da 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 in either Austin, Seattle, because people are far more willing to move at this point because people are able to work remotely. So people are not tied to a certain market. So now maybe you're competing in markets that you never thought possible. So track your geos, people really know where people are coming from. But then the AI was able to populate right there for them. Here, okay, here's what you're looking for in these markets. So then how do we make sure that the AI is leveraging our property? Who manages that? Who makes sure that, is there a pay per click in that situation, you know? We need to make sure that there's a way that we can leverage AI from an advertising standpoint, not just tailoring our existing ads to certain people, but rather when people go to those solutions now that are being used, that we show up on those solutions.
Yeah, and I hope that as that evolves, it starts to work into a solution that works for the renter and not just for, taking our money, but we
Right.
want to make sure that it serves up the right thing for that person. It's all about making that easier.
Yes, because everything else in their life is easy at this point,
Yeah.
and we have options. We have options for everything.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that we as multifamily are aligning with how people live their daily lives and how easy that is for them.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you. This is amazing insight. I feel like you could write a book about this and I would read the whole thing. So thank you.
Audiobook, 'cause I would never wanna write.
I would love to listen to that audiobook for sure.
That'd be so fun. That'd be a blast. But this has been such a pleasure to be with you, Tiffany. And I love that you are furthering conversations about technology in our industry because it needs to happen,
Yeah.
right? Our industry does need to adopt more. Our industry does need to keep pushing forward. Just because the pandemic's over doesn't mean we can stop innovating, doesn't mean that our clients are business as usual. Our clients of today are not the clients of yesterday. They are not. People live their lives very differently now. People expect more at this point, and we can do better. We need to do better as an industry, not just for the sake of, making everybody feel good, but we are proving it out. So many people are proving it out. We're just one of them. That when you focus on that, it also positively impacts the bottom.
Exactly.
And so what's good for our clients is good for business. And I know that's cliche, but it is so true.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I do feel like we have lost a bit of that, right? And I don't know if multifamily ever fully had that. Some
Mm,
companies certainly, but what is good for your clients is what's good for your business. And we're proving that out for us personally as a company. And I'm so glad that we are of that mentality. I'm very proud to work for a company that's of that mentality. And I challenge everyone to get to that.
absolutely. Well, thank you. I'm so excited to share this with the world and everybody get on the specialization train.